API Conference, Elevating API Literacy.
Why do we version our APIs? So there are several reasons why we version our APIs. The most important thing is backward compatibility. You want to ensure continuity when you are building your API. You don't want to build an API, just as I mentioned in the challenge, right? An issue where you push a new change, you push something new, and then it affects your existing customers, right? So backward compatibility ensures that continuity. So because a customer is on version 1, and then maybe you make a major change, you don't push to version 1, you push to version 2, and then that customer can still continue to use that version 1 till whenever they are ready to move to version 2, right? So that's what backward compatibility is. It ensures that the product or the software still continues to work, right? Despite new changes. So let me move to the next one. Everything works with what they are doing. Also, it's also the clear depreciation part. The clear depreciation part helps phase out legacy code. So you already told your customers that in the next 2 years, version 1 will not be available anymore. So they already know that if they are still on that product, it's their fault because they need to move and then you will not have like permanent legacy code. I don't know if you guys remember that I mentioned permanent legacy code is one of the challenges of API version. That was the challenge. So this clear decision part helps like your customer know that after a particular time, this API will not be valid anymore. The next thing is scalability. People can handle growth. Even you as the API owner, right? You can help your customers like allocate their resources efficiently, right? Instead of allowing everybody to be on the same API version, people can move from version 1 to version 2. You can have 10,000 customers on version 2 and maybe version 1 because you are letting it go like you're having like 200 people left, and people keep transiting. Yeah, so that's scalability. Improved documentation and communication. Okay, so this is one very important thing. I know that Funke mentioned, talk about documentation. I'm not sure you guys were in that session. And was anybody in the session here? Oh yeah. So documenting your API is one very important thing, right? You need to properly, why version, right? You need to document that version 1 supports this particular thing you're doing. And then when you move to version 2, this is what it supports. This is what it doesn't support. So when you're versioning your API, you need to like document properly, communicate, you need to be transparent, let people know that just as I mentioned earlier, next year we're not going to be supporting this version on your own. You need to move on to what next. Yeah, so it helps with versioning. When you version your APIs, it helps your customers understand what they currently have on version 1 and what the new version provides for them, right? So that's on improved documentation and communication. So control, I think I must have explained this, but like users can now choose the version that they are on. So you are on version 1 or you are on version 1.1, and you know that you don't have like the capacity to like bring new engineers to version 1.2 or 1.3 yet. You can choose to stay on 1 till maybe 1 expires or till the 1 is not supported anymore. And then people can choose to customize what they feel or what they want, right? So you, based on your needs, your stability, you can choose to, maybe you are not sure of the new version, you want people to test it out here. I mean, it happens where maybe Apple or Microsoft release a new software and then some people will be the first to try it out. And then there's me and I'm like, oh no, let everybody upgrade their laptop first. And then when I'm sure that it's stable, then I move, yeah. So that's on control. So now I'm going to talk about the strategies for API versioning. There are several strategies, but I'm going to talk about some of the most common ones, right? So the first one we have is the URL versioning. I'm sure some of you must have seen like some URL that look like this, like say motunrayo.com/v1. We're engineers here now. You guys have seen something similar. Yes. So in this kind of API versioning, you have like the version number included in the parts. So you just do, it's easy for your, of course you document, or you don't just say because it's easy like this, right? In your documentation, you explain to your customers that the versioning is included in the URL. So your customers know that when they are doing motunrayo.com/version1/users, that they are on the first version, right? And then the minute in their settings, the minute they move to the version 2 URL, they are already on the next version. So they need to check that. They need to check the version they are on, confirm that what they have works with the version that they have. So this is like the most common, or what the most common type of, and the most straightforward method of API versioning, right? So the next one is query parameters. Has anybody seen this kind of URL where you're on?
Yes.
Yeah, you just see after the endpoint, you see like a query, and then you see the version number that you are currently on. A lot of websites use this one, even though I don't like it, but a lot of websites use this type of API version. The API query, it's called query parameter versioning, right? This is the second one. Some people like it, but so the third one is the header versioning. I actually really like this one. I don't know, some people might not, but it helps make the URL very clean. So in this method, your customers cannot see the version you are on. It's you that are the engineer, that you know what you passed in the header. So in this kind of API versioning strategy, the version is separated from the URL. So we keep the version in the header, right? So your customers will just see motunrayo.com or facebook.com. They don't know what version you're on, right? So in the header that you are sending to make the request, right, you see maybe the version is API version 1.1, 1.2, then the clients or the API you're making the request to will already understand based on what's in your header. So in this way, you keep your customers are not very technical, because some people can see a query parameter like the website maybe facebook.com, and they're not seeing like a question mark and like, what's the question mark about? Yeah. So I actually really like, it's my own personal preference, right? But personally, I love the header versioning. It makes everything clean. You are separating your URL from you're separating your version from your URL, and then your customers don't need to care about, or they don't need to worry about what the version method is, right? Yeah, so I'm going to talk about like the best practices for API versioning success. Okay, yeah, this is very important. The first one is you have to declare a clear version strategy. Like you can't be using URI parts for one part of your product, and then the other part of your product is using query parameter. So you have to stick to one, you have to be consistent, basically. You have to stick to one version technique. A part of your product cannot be using the URI, another part is using header, another part is using query parameter. If you are using one, stick with that one across all your APIs so that your customers don't get confused as what's happening here. Like they are using query here, they are using headers here. Like just stick to one. Secondly, when you now stick to the one you choose, if you are using URL parts, you have to document the parts you are using and communicate it to all your customers, people that are using it. Let them know that this is the API strategy you are using. In your documentation, it will be obvious. You have to document here. You have to let APIs. You have to document APIs. It's not you do something that you not communicate to your third party customers that would integrate your APIs, right? So choose one strategy and be consistent across all your products. That's very important. The second one is you have to plan for backward compatibility. You have to ensure that new version don't break existing versions, right? Existing functionalities. Say for example now, a customer is on version 1 of your products based on the strategy and all the things we've previously talked about. If you are building version 2, right, even though you are adding new changes, you have to make sure that when customers move to the new changes, it doesn't break a lot of things that they're not like, oh, why did I transit to this new version, right? You have to plan for non-breaking changes. Then depreciation policy, I kind of mentioned this one earlier, where you have to give them enough time to transition to the new things. In case something breaks, if you give a customer 2 years to move to your new software, I think most software give more than that. People still use Laravel 8, people still use tools like that, even though they are not the latest, right? But they still support it to an extent, right? So you have to give them more than enough time in case the customer has just one engineer on their team, right? The second one is documentation. I must have talked about this over and over again. You have to properly document everything you're doing, your version history, migration guides, everything you're doing. You have to properly document and prepare for each new version, right? Semantic versioning. You have to adopt. So, for example, you have major changes. This one is the one that you really need to create like a new version for. So it's like 1.0, right? If it's a minor change, you have to put like it's called semantic versioning, right? One from what is on the screen, like we have 1.0.0. So the 1 is the major, 0 is the minor, and the second 0 is like a patch, which is like a bug fix to the software. I know most of us are engineers and we probably like have seen something like this before, but for people that are not technical, this is called semantic versioning, right? Then communicate changes clearly. Even when you've updated your API documentation, you have to still release notes and say what this new version is doing. You have to highlight all the changes, everything you've changed, right? And then, yeah, that's all. Thank you.
API Conference, Elevating API Literacy.